If the Greek gods were actually the Anunnaki gods, is there any crossover between Greece and Sumer, the original location for where humans were learned and taught, etc.? Have a listen to this. This is a great interview with Dr. Ivan Finkel, who is the head curator of the British Museum. Have a listen to this.
One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is this, that the Sumerians first, and then the Babylonians after them, they had very sophisticated mathematics. From 5,000 years ago, they could jiggle around really big numbers. They were very clever with numbers. And the Sumerian thinkers who worked on these systems, they preferred to think sexagesimally rather than decimally. So in other words, we work with 10, the number 10 usually, because most people have.
So basically what he says is originally Sumer had the 60s instead of 10s. So when we count in 10s, they counted in 60s. Now when the Greek people went over, they learnt this from the Babylonians, who learnt it from the Sumers, and that's why we get 60 minutes in an hour and so on. And have also listened to this.
Not everybody would believe that. It is a rather mysterious matter. I've often wondered about what it means. And so they didn't have the kind of religion where there was a heaven that you'd go to. They didn't have this sort of idea.
So this is Sumer. There was no heaven back when Sumer was around. As I say, heaven is a man-made construct. Obviously the translations should have been space. We've translated it as heaven, but... And also, interestingly, speaking while on the subject of Sumer, in the same interview here, Ivan Finkel actually says the language looks like it's from another planet, which is kind of interesting because obviously it belongs, the Sumer language or cuneiform Sumerian language belongs to the Elohim, which is the Anunnaki's race name. And one last thing, have a listen to this also on the same interview.
And it's true. We know that there was a, like in many other parts of the world, they had many gods and goddesses in ancient Iraq, the Sumerians and the Babylonians too. And there were local gods and goddesses. So when you had a city-state, there'd be a big god in charge of it, but a small village might have a particularly small god looking out for them. So eventually there was a lot of gods and goddesses, and sometimes you have an interesting phenomenon in society.
So basically what he carries on saying is that they worked out that they are all one of the same, e.g. Greek gods, Anunnaki, all one of the same gods. Medusa, do you really know her? Well, I thought I'd go through some of the ancient Greek stories. Now that sometimes there are more than one version of a story, but let's go through Medusa's. So in one version, she is a very attractive lady, and she would tend to Athena's temple, in other words, looking after her, etc. And one day Athena got upset that she was so pretty that everyone was actually going to see Medusa instead of Athena's temple. But nothing actually happened until Poseidon, which possibly could be Enki, came along and forced himself on her on the throne of Athena's temple, which caused Athena to be very upset with Medusa, even though it wasn't her fault. Literally, Poseidon did naughty bad things and he shouldn't have. So Medusa was cursed by Athena, and I'll tell you in the next video what happens next. After Medusa was forcefully attacked by Poseidon on the altar of Athena's temple, Athena became very angry that her temple was now violated. So Athena then put a curse on Medusa, causing Medusa to have snakes in her hair and turn people to stone. Now Athena banished her, and obviously Medusa left there. And Medusa was out in the wilds for a long time, wandering around, and eventually, obviously unfortunately killing many people that tried to kill her, just by looking at them. And eventually she came across this old derelict building, and she went into the derelict building and she stayed there, but what she found was that she wanted to clean it up. And as she cleaned it up, it turned out it was an old Athena temple, one that so she started to look after it. I'll tell you more in the next video. Following on from my last two videos about Medusa, Perseus was sent by King Polydectes to chop her head off, and he was also given a mirrored shield from Athena, sandals of gold wings from Hermes, and a sword from Hephaestus. And when he finally reached Medusa, he used the shield to reflect an image so he wouldn't look directly into her face, and managed to chop off her head, which he then returned back to give to Athena. Now, interestingly, it was Athena that gave him the shield. So what we've got is this young lady, Medusa, who was very pretty, was basically, she didn't like her because she was too pretty, and she ended up helping Perseus by giving him the shield to kill Medusa. So it's kind of a sad story, that version of it anyway. Rh negative blood comes from the Anunnaki, which is also the Greek gods, the Roman gods, the Egyptian gods, etc. And their offspring have Rh negative, and they obviously bred with humans and eventually either diluted, or some people still have Rh negative, which is a blood type that actually kills babies, which is a foreign blood type. No other species has that type of blood that will actually kill their own babies. Now, this numpty website here, the Tech Interactive, literally says that it's an ordinary trait because there's quite a lot of people with it. So in fact, there works out to be 1,200,000,000 people with Rh negative, because that's normal then. But hang on a minute, there's 1 billion disabled people. Does that make that normal? If you're interested in finding out more about Rh negative, on TikTok, Blue Moon Sigma, follow that person. This person tells you absolutely everything you ever need to know about blood types.